Agency on Thursday, Admiral Mark Dalton, commanding officer of the USS Ronald Reagan, said the Allies maintain strong deterrence through the joint exercises. US Carrier Strike Group 5 is currently deployed to the EC and has been taking part in joint operations with South Korea's Navy since Monday. Dalton said the purpose of the drills is not to escalate tensions on the peninsula, emphasizing that the exercises are purely defensive in nature.
The country's top Homeland Security official says terrorists want to pull off another 9/11. Tonight we're hearing from the head of the CIA. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine.
Thank you, Red. Speaking in Washington, the CIA director said the threat from Islamist terror groups is severe and complex, despite the near collapse of the ISIS caliphate in Iraq and Syria.
Make no mistake about it, the intent still remains, the capability remains. And we worry, too, that there's capability that we just don't see. We're very focused on it, and it's clearly the case that there are terrorists around the world who are intent upon using commercial aviation as their vector to present a threat to the West.
Director Pompeo responded to comments from the Acting Secretary of Homeland Security, Elaine Duke. Speaking at the U.S. Embassy in London Wednesday, Duke warned that ISIS remains determined to pull off a large-scale attack like 9/11 using passenger jets. Duke said ISIS uses truck attacks like Barcelona in August, where terrorists plowed through a pedestrian mall, killing and injuring more than 140 people, to remain highly visible, to raise money, and to keep their followers engaged. Despite battlefield losses, intelligence officials tell Fox News that terror groups and independent actors are developing non-metallic explosive devices with the intent of bringing down civilian aircraft bound for the U.S. This intelligence stream led to new restrictions in March at 10 overseas airports, banning personal electronics larger than a smartphone inside the cabin. The restrictions were ultimately lifted in June after new screening procedures were implemented and other standards met. Brett.
Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, Dana, it happened in a remote desert area on the border between Niger and Mali. 12 U.S. soldiers, we've now learned, from the Army's 3rd Special Forces Group accompanied 30 troops from Niger on a routine meeting with elders in the village of Tonga Tonga. The American Green Berets traveled by convoy in unarmored military trucks, just as they had done 29 times without incident over the past 6 months for similar meetings. The troops were ambushed, we're told, after they left the meeting at about 12 p.m. local time. 50 jihadists from a new ISIS affiliate riding motorcycles, toting rocket-propelled grenades and machine guns sprayed the U.S. troops with gunfire. A gunfight ensued. 30 minutes later, French Mirage fighter jets appeared in the skies above, and the militants scattered. A French helicopter flew the American wounded back to the capital. A contractor then carried the 3 American Green Berets killed in action back by helicopter to the capital. Sergeant LaDavid Johnson remained missing. U.S. officials feared that he was kidnapped and asked the press to hold off reporting that he was missing. At 5 p.m. Eastern Time on the day of the attack, October 4th, the Pentagon informed the White House of the incident. That was shortly after the attack began. 2 hours later, U.S. AFRICOM, based in Stuttgart, Germany, put out its first statement. 2 days then passed before Sergeant Johnson's body was found. A contractor flew his body back to the Capitol by helicopter.
So
Dana?
why, Jennifer, then, is Congress angry about this?
Well, they're angry because more than 2 weeks later, the Congressional Armed Services Committees, who have oversight, have not been briefed on the incident. There are serious questions about why there was not U.S. surveillance above the convoy and why it took 2 days to find Sergeant LaDavid Johnson's body. Senators are now demanding hearings.
What steps will you take with the community to get to the bottom?
They require a subpoena, but I did have a good conversation with General McMaster, and they said that they would be briefing us. We have a long friendship, and we'll hopefully get all the details.
Do you feel the administration's been forthcoming up to this point about what happened there?
Of course not.
The delay, as much as the non-disclosure, is a cause for very grave concern.
U.S. officials blame a new ISIS affiliate that broke away from al-Qaeda in October 2016. Its local leader, Adnan Abu Walid, is thought to be holding an American aid worker hostage. Some are trying to paint this as an intelligence failure. Pentagon officials tell us this is the problem operating across Africa. Very large remote spaces. Local extremist groups are starting to call themselves ISIS, and there is a degree of risk with doing any of these missions, Dana.
And they're certainly determined. Okay, Jennifer Griffin, thank you so much for that. And for more on this, I am joined by retired four-star General Jack King. Thank you so much for being here, sir. You're the chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, and of course, you're a Fox News military analyst. So when you look at this situation, if you could explain to the viewers, why were we in Niger in the first place? Why did we have Green Berets in that area?
Well, we're actually in much of North Africa, to be quite frank about it, because of the absolute spread of radical Islam. It is a global jihad now operating in most every continent, and its expansion concerns all of us. And what we try to do here is train and assist the local indigenous forces in about 6 to 8 countries there, so they can deal with the growing extremism themselves. So we provide assistance to them. We're not leading in any of the fight. We're helping them. From time to time, we will conduct a drone strike if we get good intelligence on a target. But the people on the ground that are doing the fighting are the local forces. The Special Forces team is there to train and assist them in doing that. But of course, when they're out teaching them how to do combat patrols, you're in a combat zone, and you're subject to contact with the enemy. In this case, it appears they were doing something they do quite often, as Jennifer mentioned, going out to deal with various villages. They call it tribal engagement, to really understand what is happening in those villages, to understand what the enemy is doing and the pressure they're putting on them. The other thing is our special forces, or Green Berets. I commanded Fort Bragg, and that's the home of the airborne and special forces, so I'm quite familiar with it. What they do, they're our primary trainers in different regions of the world of other military forces. They learn the language, they understand the culture, they live close to the people. They're used to being in a small group as opposed to large formations, and they're very adaptive to the culture, and they're an absolute force multiplier for us. But I think, Dana, what's really bothering the Pentagon, and certainly my dear friend John McCain there, is why was this group so exposed?
Right.
And it appears unnecessarily exposed. And I think, and we got to give the Pentagon a little bit of time to get to the bottom of it. I mean, This is a firefight that took place an ocean away.
Right, and in a very remote area, given that they had to go so far to get there. What about the fact that the French Mirage, the military plane that was there, they weren't able to protect them? So do we possibly have just a problem there in terms of rules of engagement or sort of cooperation with our allies? Well,
from what I understand, and I don't have inside information from the Pentagon because I don't bug them about things like this. What I understand, the country of Niger does not permit us to have armed drones providing overhead protection for our patrols. So the Mirages, or French fighter aircraft, got there within 30 minutes. But usually a firefight like this, where you're being ambushed, the actual primary killing that takes place in exchange of fire is very explosive, and it doesn't last for a long period of time. And the other thing is the unit integrity was broken down by the sheer violence of an ambush. And these are very chaotic things for well-disciplined troops, believe me, because at that point, when you're under such intense enemy fire, you are absolutely fighting to protect your life at that point, and you're outnumbered and you're outgunned, and you know that this is a life-ending situation that you're involved in.
Earlier this week, you were on the Daily Briefing. We thank you for that. And you were talking about how ISIS is, at least their land mass area, is being depleted in the Middle East. But these were supposedly ISIS fighters. Is there some sort of conflagration that is growing in northern Africa that we now have to turn our attention to?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I mean, I think what we need to do here, the administration has obviously been so busy in foreign policy and national security. They had major reviews on North Korea, major reviews on Iran, and certainly on Afghanistan. They need to do a strategic review here, because what essentially we're doing, Dana, is we're executing Obama's policy in North Africa, as I just tried to explain it, the counter-extremism, radical Islam, train and assist. Do we have the right strategy is a question, a reasonable question for the president to be asking, and do we have the right resources to apply to that strategy? So they need to do a review here, and probably this will spark it.
This will do it. Yeah, I agree. All right, General Jack King, we appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good talking to you, Dana.